Good morning and happy Sabbath. Thank you for joining us today online. Due to the growing concerns and the quick spread of the coronavirus, we are taking precautionary measures by implementing what our conference has requested and closing live services here at the Victor Valley Seventh-day Adventist Church until the end of the month, and we will continue to keep you updated as things change. The virus COVID-19 has been found to be more serious for those who have a high risk of severe illness and underlying health conditions, as well as our senior population. Because of this, we ask that if you are in fear of leaving your home to get groceries and you are in this category, please call our church and we'll find the means to make that grocery run for you. Please feel free to give us a call at 760-245-3620, or you can find us on Facebook or email us at vvsdachurch@gmail.com. God bless you and have a happy Sabbath. And now let's enjoy a children's story provided by Samantha Peralta, pastor of children and family at the Azure Hills Church.
Hey guys, it's Pastor Sam, and today we're going to be doing a science experiment. So I have my trusty borrowed lab coat, and I brought some super special glasses that are going to help to see really well, but they might magnify some parts of my face a little bit weird, but they're going to help me see what we're doing. And remember, always safety first if you try this at home. So first what we're going to do is we're going to set out 4 cups of water, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we're going to fill them with water. The next thing we're going to do is put food coloring into each of the cups. So here's the first one. We're going to put a couple drops of red. And I'm watching very closely through my glasses to make sure that it's the right amount. And then we're going to put a couple drops of yellow. Now we're going to do several drops of blue. Let's see if we can get a little bit more blue out of this one. And then for the last one, we're going to make purple. And I'm sure all of you know that blue and red make purple. So we're going to put a little bit of blue and a little bit of red in this one. Now the last thing that we need to do is mix it all up. Make sure to wipe the knife or whatever you use to mix it in between so that you don't mix up those colors. And there's our blue. And finally, our special purple mixture. Now that the dangerous part is all over, I've taken off my glasses. Now the next step is to put empty cups in between each of the cups that have color. Just like this. So we have red, then we have an empty cup, yellow, empty cup, blue, empty cup, and purple. Now for the last step, all you'll need are some paper towels. And what you're going to do is take a paper towel and fold it. And then you're going to fold it. And then you're going to fold it. And you're going to do that with all of the paper towels that you have. Now the last step is to take the paper towels and put them in between the cups. Alright you guys, now we're just gonna have to see what happens to these paper towels and these cups. So I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow to see what happens. Just kidding! I prepared some in advance, just give me a second and I'll get it set up so you can see what happens several hours after we set up this experiment. So what happened? If you'll notice, the empty cups that were in between now have a lot of water in them. So if you look here, this cup used to be empty, but now it has orange water. So it not only has water, but it combined the colors from the red and the yellow to make orange. And then you'll see here, the yellow and the blue combine to make green, and the blue and the purple combine to make, well, some people kind of call that a galaxy color. So how did this happen? How did the water travel up the paper towel and down into the cup without any water? Well, it's something that you may not have heard of, or maybe you have, but it's called capillary action. And you see that happening when you look outside and you see plants growing. When plants grow, where do they get their water from? They get them from roots, and those roots go deep into the ground and have to pull up the water. The water has to travel up the roots to the plant. And if you look at this, the water clearly traveled from the red cup and the yellow cup to this cup to make orange. You know, seeing capillary action happen right before my eyes reminds me of a verse that I've read in Matthew chapter 5. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus says that you and I are like salt in this world, and that we're like light in this world. But the thing with salt and light is, if you keep salt all to itself in a container, it can't impact the world. If you keep light hidden under a bushel, Jesus says, then the world won't be able to see it. In the same way, if we had this red cup that was full of red water, and this yellow cup that was full, but this one was empty, and they kept all to themselves, then this cup here in the middle would just be empty. It's kind of like having God's love in our lives. God has given us His love, but if we keep it to ourselves, then those around us who are empty won't be able to experience it. But if we are willing to reach out, and for some of us that looks like being a good friend, being kind, helping a neighbor, when we reach out to other people, then they are not only able to be filled with God's love, but the whole world gets more beautiful. As you can see here, we don't just have red and yellow and blue and purple, but the whole rainbow is represented here. And when we do that, when we share God's love with other people, everyone gets to be impacted, and together our world is more beautiful. So just remember, don't keep God's love to yourself, but reach out and share that so that everyone can be full of God's love, and together we can all reflect God. I got this experiment idea from my friend Ryan over at Ryan's World, so go ahead and look that up if you want any more cool experiments, and remember to always share God's love with others. Have a great Sabbath!
And now let's enjoy a sermon from Pastor Wally from May 4th, 2019.
So God has called us all to love. That's one thing that is true, and that is one thing that the Bible talks about often. God has called us to love. Now, I think part of the problem that we have as people is that sometimes we want to do things out of a sense of duty, obligation, and not out of a sense of love, which is very, very different. And we will see that today. We will see that today. But before we get started, I'm going to ask you if you would please bow your heads and pray with me as we hand out the last couple of books for the people who need it. If somebody comes and you see that somebody comes into the service late and you see that they don't have a book and might be interested, approach one of our deacons and we will make sure that you get, or that person gets, one of those books. But yeah, let's bow our heads and let's enter into a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you so much for this day. We want to thank you because you have placed 12 people in our lives. We want to thank you because you have given us love. And this love, God, you have called us to share with everyone. I want to thank you for everything that you've done, for everything that you have called us to be, and for the people that you are making us become. All of this we ask in your name. Amen. All right, so I'm going to start off by saying that I do like cars. Cars is one of the things that I can think of for quite a long time. And if you go on my YouTube app, you will see a lot of car enthusiasts on my suggested to watch next list. I love cars. It's something that I love to do. I love to see the cars, to look at the cars. I don't know much about it, but I do love to see it. And when I was 16 or 17 years old, my dad asked me a question that it was just a dream. He looked at me and he said, "Wally, what kind of car do you want?" It's kind of like an open question, right? What kind of car do you want? And you're just thinking like, that is a good question. What kind of car don't I want? Let me see. But you see, what had happened was that my older brother, he received a gift when he was 16 or 17 by a complete, total stranger. So we were sitting in church one day, and this guy approaches my dad, and he says, "Hey, does your son want a car?" And my brother looks at my dad, and he goes, "Yeah, I want a car." And out of his pocket, he pulls out these keys, and he goes, "Here, my son doesn't want this car, so if he wants it, he can have it." It was a 1980 320i BMW. It was stick shift. It was silver. It was beautiful. It was fast. And I loved the car. I really did love the car. So when my dad asked me, "Wally, what do you want?" I knew what I wanted. See, I already knew those cars. I had worked on that car with my brother before. So I already knew that car. So I told my dad, "Okay, I know we don't have all the money in the world, so I know you're not inviting me to ask for a brand new car, right?" So I said, "Okay, how about a 320i BMW? Around the 1980s would be cool." And he said, "Okay." So we started to pray for it. We prayed for it. We saved. I got a little job and began to save, put money aside. And after a couple of months of praying and saving, we were driving down the street on our way home. And out of the corner of my eye, I saw this beautiful safari beige, amazing car with this big, big poster that said, "For sale, $1,000. And I said, "Pull the brakes. We need to stop right here. This is where we need to stop." And so we pulled in. We called. We looked inside. It was really old. The carpet inside was green. The leather interior was brown. It was a brown leather interior. It was a safari beige car. It was not stick shift, but I was not upset about it. We looked inside and we're like, okay, yeah, it's an older car, but cool. Let's call this guy. We called the guy. The guy pulled up. It was a younger guy, and he said, "Yeah, this BMW import shop, this is mine. So if you ever need anything for the car, just let me know." We purchased the car. We wrote the check right there, right then. We purchased the car, and I didn't drive it home because I didn't have my license yet. I only had a permit, but I was excited. I was really excited. I really loved that car. As soon as we got home, I washed it. It didn't need to be washed, but I washed it. It had no shine. It was an old car. It was like matte safari beige, not on purpose, just it's old. It was an old car, but I loved it. It had a sunroof, but it was one of those that you had to crank. But I loved it. I absolutely loved the car. But here's the thing. This car was nothing like my brother's car. It was the complete opposite. My brother's car is still running up until today. He doesn't use it anymore, but it still runs. It's got over 300,000 miles, but it's still running. It's still kicking. That car, the first 3 months, the fuel pump went out. We replaced it. The next 3 months, fuel pump went out again. Replaced that again. And that's just how our life was for the next 3 years. Fuel pump after fuel pump after fuel pump. And then all the electrical wiring went out. And then the engine just started acting funky. But I loved the car. I absolutely loved the car. There was nothing that you can say for me to sell the car. I loved it. I wanted that car. That was my car. The very first day I went back to school after purchasing the car, I remember sitting in class, and I was just so jittery. I didn't drink coffee at the time. I didn't have any coffee, but I was just so jittery, so full of excitement, so full of joy. I turned to the guy next to me, and I was like, "So how was your weekend?" And, he told me the same old story, and I was just waiting for him to ask me, "So how was yours?" But he never did. So I was like, "Don't you want to know about my weekend? Let me tell you. I bought a car." He was not excited because he had a 1973 Mustang. It was fully restored. It was red. It was convertible. It was beautiful. It was an amazing car. It was the coolest car at school. But I told him, "Hey, my car is better. Trust me. It's better. It's a BMW to start off with. It's a BMW." I didn't tell him what year it was. I kept that a secret. But the second class, I went to the second class. It was the same story. The guy I sat next to, I was just so excited, right? "So how was your weekend?" Waiting for him to respond back to me. "So how was yours?" And then the next class, and the next class, and the next class, until finally I reached my last class, and I sat there with my best friend, Eddie, and I looked at Eddie, and I was like, "How was your weekend, Eddie?" And he looked at me, and he was like, "It was good." And then he smiled. He's like, "You want me to ask you about your weekend, huh?" And I was like, yeah, I do. He was like, "I don't have to. You bought a car. It's a BMW. It's a 1981. It's a 320i. It's a Safari beige. It's got leather interior. It's brown. It's got green carpet. It's a 4-cylinder." He told me the whole thing, and I looked at him, and I was like, "Did I tell you about it?" He was like, "Yeah, you told me twice. And then you talked about it during lunch, and then you kept talking about it, and I'm not surprised you still want to talk about it." He's like, "You want me to come over and check it out?" And I was like, "Sure. Come on over. Let's check out the car." You see, there's a difference when you love something and when you do something out of obligation, right? There's a big difference. It's a huge difference. When you actually love something, when you're so excited about something, we all become childlike. We can't help it. It doesn't matter how old we are, how young we are. When we're excited about something, when we truly love something, when we see something for what it is, and not out of a sense of obligation, duty, it's there because we get excited. We kind of start jumping a little bit. Our voice kind of raises up a little bit. Our eyebrows are up. Our heart rate starts pumping a little faster, and we can't wait to tell someone about this thing, right? Roy Ice, the author of the book, The 12 People That You Love, says the following on page 12. If you have not read the book, this is an invitation to do so. This is what he says. He says, "The call to disciple making is a call to utilize your influence for God's kingdom. It is a proven rule that to have influence, you must have a relationship. If you have no relationship, you have no influence. So the simplest way to answer the Great Commission is not by going downtown and randomly calling people to follow me. No. God has already placed your disciples within your sphere of influence. They are members of your family, close friends, fellow church members, and your friends who do not even attend church. These are your disciples. Some of them just don't know it yet." So right after this car gave out, it was about 2-3 years later, right? This car gave out. I was tired of replacing the fuel pump. I was tired. I made really good friends with different mechanics because I was just taking it, to different people. I finally got rid of it. I got rid of it for a fraction of the price that I bought it. I was sad to see it go, but at the time I was moving over to PUC to go to school, and there was no way this car was going to make it. There was just no way. So I sold the car, and with the little money I had left, I bought this other car that I absolutely hated. I hated the car. I really did. I hated it. It was a 1999 Kia Cephia. It was purple. Yeah, it was purple. But it was $1,000. All right, don't judge me. It was $1,000. I hated this car. But this car did not hate me back. For some reason, that car went over the 400,000 mile mark. And it took us through college. It took me through internships. It took us from Riverside all the way to PUC, which is 500 miles, one trip, for 3 years. For 3 years without dying. I didn't care about the car. I trashed it. There was always trash in it. I hardly ever washed it. It was always dusty. I always told myself, this is a temporary car. I hate this car. This car is the worst. It's embarrassing me in front of my friends, right? I really did not like the car. I parked it as far away as I could from the dormitory. Whenever people said, whose car that is, I'd be like, I don't know. It's been there. This whole time, I have no idea whose car it is. But that car was a trooper. I hated it. I didn't tell anybody about it. If you go to my social media, you will not find any pictures of the Kia. It's not in there. It's not on any of my archives. None of the photos were taken inside that Kia. I did not like it. I didn't like it. I feel a little ashamed that I'm telling you about it, to be honest. I prefer to go back to the story of the BMW. But that's kind of what it's like when you don't like something. When you truly don't love something, you don't want to talk about it. You don't. It's a little embarrassing, right? When you don't really like something, just picture an article of clothing that you absolutely detest, and it just sits there in your closet. And say it could talk, and all of a sudden it says, hey, when are you going to wear me? And you go, never, I hate you. I'm never going to wear you. You make me look horrible, right? You're too big for me. You don't fit me, right? You don't fit me. It's just, we don't go together, so it's not going to happen. And say there is your favorite article of clothing that's falling apart and it's old, but you love it. It makes you look good, and all of a sudden that could talk. And it says, hey, give me a break. And it says, no, you look too good on me. I'm going to wear you for as long as I can. I'm proud of you, right? So we go back to the book of Mark. I know we're jumping here from section to section, but we go back to the book of Mark, to the verse that was read today. Mark chapter 16, verse 14, and this is what it says. It says, afterwards he, Jesus, appeared to the 11 themselves as they were reclining at the table, and he rebuked them for their unbelief and hardness of heart. Did you hear that? Their unbelief and hardness of heart, because they had not believed those who saw him after he had risen. And he said to them, go into all the world. Go into all of the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. So, I'm going to make some assumptions here. If you're okay with it, we're going to make some assumptions. I'm assuming that as God is speaking here, he is not speaking to his enemies. Can we all be together with this assumption? He's not going over to Satan's gates and saying, hey, everybody, go and tell the world about me. Why? Because they don't like Jesus, right? They don't like God. They don't love him. There's no reason, no obligation, there's no desire for them to do this. So I'm going to go here with an assumption and say that Jesus is talking to those that love him, right? To those that love him. He's saying these words. So just bear with me. God could easily say, to those that love me, Jesus says, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. Now here's the part where I get caught up. So when I read this, usually I think to myself what we just read. Yeah, let's go to the street and start telling people, hey, do you love Jesus? Do you love Jesus? Do you want to come and be with Jesus, come to the church. Let's worship together. It's awkward, right? It's weird. It's strange. It's awkward. It hardly ever works. Research says that it's like 0.01% of those people come to church. I mean, I guess there's the 0.01% still, but it's not a huge success rate. What this book is calling us to do, Roy Ice, what he's calling us to do is to love the people that are close to us. When God is telling us to go into all of the world, he's talking about the world that you're in right now. He's not asking you to make up a world. He's not asking you to go down the street and start making up a world and then go home to a different world and then come back to another world and go back and forth. God is asking you to go into the world you are in right now. The world you exist in right now, the people that are around you, the people that you love, the people that you sit with, your best friends, your cousins, your brothers, your sisters, your mother, your father, everybody that's around you. God is saying, go into all the world and proclaim the gospel to the whole creation. How much do you love Jesus? How excited does he make you? Are you anxiously awaiting to tell somebody? If you are, start with the people around you. Start with the people close to you. This is my invitation to you today, to become a disciple maker with the people that you have around you. God bless.
Song we could ever sing, worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder.
Don't forget to join us next week. We will have a fresh sermon and a fresh program for you. If you would like to give your tithe and offering, you can do so by going to greentreeadventist.com. And on the drop-down menu, you will find a tab called Online Giving, and you can give your tithe there. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week.